What if the best way to solve a problem wasn't to solve it at all? What if it was to make it completely irrelevant? Today, we're going to explore a really powerful philosophy from a text by Shui Fang that suggests maybe, just maybe, we're all stuck fighting the wrong battles. So let's just start with a huge question. How do you solve a problem that feels impossible? You know, the kind where every single solution you try just seems to lead to more conflict, more struggle? Well, this is the central puzzle the author is trying to figure out. And the answer is this fascinating concept called jiangwei, or dimensional reduction. Now, the core idea is actually pretty simple, but it is powerful. Stop fighting on the same battlefield. Instead of trying to win the game, you completely change the game by bringing in a solution from a higher level, a higher dimension, that makes the old fight totally and completely pointless. All right, so let's really break down this new way of thinking. It all starts by looking at what's fundamentally wrong with how we usually approach problems. According to the text, we are often stuck in what's described as a cockfight. It's the state of constant, stressful, head-to-head competition for just tiny incremental gains. You know, whether it's businesses fighting for market share or people competing for the same jobs, the author argues this is a super inefficient way to live, let alone to make any real progress. So how do you get out of that cycle? Well, the author gives some fantastic, really clear examples from technology to show exactly how dimensional reduction works in the real world. Okay, just think about the smartphone. It didn't set out to build a better flashlight, or a cheaper camera, or a more convenient calculator. It didn't compete with those things one-on-one. Nope. Instead, it created a brand new, higher dimension platform that just absorbed all of their functions, making those original single-purpose items pretty much obsolete for most of us. And the author uses this really powerful phrase for this effect: dimensionally eliminated. The newspaper industry didn't lose to a better newspaper, it was dimensionally eliminated by a device that gave us a fundamentally new way to get our information. This just perfectly captures the whole idea. And the author makes a key point here. These huge shifts aren't a choice. You don't get to vote on whether they happen. Once a higher dimensional solution shows up, everyone eventually adopts it. It's just inevitable. Another great example from the text is the car. You know, Henry Ford didn't try to breed a faster horse. He introduced a whole new system of transportation on a completely different level, and in doing so, turned the horse and buggy from an essential tool into, well, a historical curiosity you might see in a museum. Okay, so we've seen how this works with technology, right? It makes sense. But what happens when you apply this same radical idea to the very fabric of our society, from our own families all the way up to our nations? This is where the concept gets really fascinating, and let's be honest, a whole lot more controversial. So first, the author points to the family unit. The text argues that a colossal amount of human energy just gets wasted on family and marital fights, problems that are described as basically impossible to solve on their current level. As the author says, nobody can ever really settle domestic affairs. So if you apply this principle of dimensional reduction, what's the solution that's presented? It's not about finding better ways for couples to argue. Instead, the author suggests a new kind of society where the traditional idea of marriage itself is eliminated, and with it, the very source of those specific problems. The problem is simply made obsolete. Then, this same logic gets scaled up to the global level. The problem here: the endless cycle of conflict, competition, and war between nations. From this viewpoint, trying to get peace through treaties or military buildup, that's just another form of same-level cockfighting. And so here it is, the proposed higher dimension solution: eliminate the very concept of the nation-state. The logic is, if there are no separate nations, there can be no war between nations. The original problem just becomes obsolete in a new, unified global structure. All of these radical ideas are building towards the author's ultimate vision for humanity. It's described as our transition to something called Civilization 3.0. And the contrast that's painted is stark. Civilization 2.0, that's our world right now, according to the author, is defined by turmoil, war, and anxiety. Civilization 3.0, on the other hand, the world that's created through dimensional reduction, is all about joy, creativity, dancing, singing, laughing. The whole point is shifting from a system based on constant struggle to one based on harmony. And just like the smartphone, the author says this transition isn't just a hopeful wish, it's an inevitable trend. It's a necessary evolution for humanity if we're going to solve our deepest, most painful problems. This all leads us to the final, guiding metaphor for how we could actually achieve this transition. And the key, according to the author, is not confrontation. The author basically advises us to stop directly fighting the problems of our current world, to stop fighting the darkness. The idea is that fighting darkness is a pointless, same-level struggle. Instead, we should focus all our energy on building the light, on creating these new, higher-dimensional models. Because once the light is bright enough, the darkness just disappears. It's been replaced. And that leaves us with this final question, which really gets to the very heart of this entire philosophy. When we look at the world's most difficult, most tangled problems, what's the best way forward? Do we pour all our energy into fighting the existing broken systems? Or is real progress only found when we focus all our efforts on building something entirely new, something that makes the old way of doing things, well, obsolete?